Welcome back to Movies TV Mads yet again, and welcome to Friday's edition of the MUFC Daily. You know, it's been a very interesting, dark week for Manchester United Football Club and the fans, especially the fans. What's been really prominent, the amount of pundits and ex-players really saying that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer should not be Manchester United manager. But he also has his friends as well. And Jan Arge Fjortoft, who is an ex-footballer I really always liked as a footballer. I thought he was a great forward and always played for lower league clubs. He's a mate of Ole's, he's Norwegian. And he's tried to defend him a bit like Gary Neville. And he's using the same justification. Just take a listen to this. Will I ask for a manager to be sacked? No. Well, if you're not a pundit, my friend, that's okay. Now, I don't know if you've got a job as a pundit. If you have, quit. Because I'm not saying you should be asking for him to be sacked, but you certainly should have an unbiased opinion, looking at the stats, looking at the results, the lack of trophies, and saying, do you know what? Ollie's my friend, but he simply isn't got the tools for this job. He's taken Manchester United as far as he can. And that's a true statement, isn't it? Do I think it's right to compare Klopp's first year with Ollie G's first years? No. This is interesting, but it gets funnier. Klopp arrived with 2 Bundesliga trophies, 1 cup trophy and 1 CL final. Hang on a minute, you're literally winning our argument, the Ollie Outers arguments for us. You're saying that Klopp arrived with 2 Bundesliga trophies and 1 cup trophy and 1 Champions League final. What that says is that Jurgen Klopp is an elite manager who deserves his place managing one of the greatest clubs in world football. I know it's Liverpool and we're supposed to hate them, but they're the facts. You're saying he should be there. So he goes on and says, Ollie G was brought in to steady the ship after Mourinho, and he did. All right, Jan. Let's look at that, because this is interesting. Because this is bullshit. Because what he's saying is you can't compare one with the other. Well, of course you can. One was brought in as the manager of one of the greatest clubs in the world, Manchester United, and the other was brought in as a manager of one of the greatest clubs in the world, Liverpool. One had the right to be there because of the trophies. Since being there, he's won a European Champions League and a Premier League. That's fantastic. How long's he been there? 4 years or so? That's amazing. Now, Ollie, since he's been there, has failed already to win a Europa League, which should be easy for Manchester United. Mourinho did that. I think he's failed in an FA Cup semi-final or final last year? He was in the FA Cup final, wasn't he? And we failed there again. He's had multiple opportunities to win trophies and he's failed. He will never win a trophy as Manchester United manager because he's simply not good enough. And hey, if he turns it around, which I don't think he will, I don't think anyone in the world thinks he will, but if he does, brilliant, because I'm a United fan and I want that to happen. But what Fjortoft is saying here is bullshit. And he's saying he was just brought in to steady the ship after Mourinho, and he did. Yes, before he was permanent manager, he steadied the ship, Jan. But you're actually not talking about the elements of what's happened since he's been permanent manager. But that doesn't matter. That's true. He steadied the ship before he was made permanent. Then he should have got the golden handshake and said, thank you very much, Ollie. Now we're going to bring the real deal in. Thank you. And if we ever need you to do this again, you'll be the first person in our thoughts. Here's a coaching role. Here's a place in the boardroom. Thank you, Ollie. You're always here for us, and that's great. What should never have happened is this man, just because he settled things down after Mourinho, be given a long, lucrative contract, even though they all knew he was already playing counter-attacking defensive football. So, Jan, you're just again twisting the narrative for your friend. It's not going to work. So, to Gary Neville and Jan Arge Fjortoft, no one wants to hear you say Ollie out. All we want from you as pundits is unbiased, which is difficult because you are biased, but it's your jobs. You've got to speak the fucking truth. So no one's saying to you, demand a manager be sacked. You're spinning the narrative. What we are asking is for an honest, assessment of the situation. So just because he's your mate and they ask, if you're asked, should he be sacked? And you should not demand it, but you should say, well, you know what, looking at the stats, it's not looking good for Ollie. There are managers out there who probably could do a better job. That's the truth. They're the facts of the matter. But unfortunately, you people are elitism. And, we go to Gary Neville. He's another one saying, why are you following me to people? Oh, people are complaining because he keeps on talking about politics, but he doesn't want to talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Manchester United. But you're a pundit, Gary. Now, if you don't want to talk about this situation, you shouldn't be a pundit earning probably, I don't know, hundreds of thousands or a couple of million a year. Whatever you're earning, Gary, right? You're earning a lot of money because you earned that right, because you were a really good player playing in great Manchester United teams. Good luck to you. But if you're not willing to have an open and honest, broad discussion about this terribly depressing situation at our club, then why are you there? When he first got his job on Sky, they made an agreement with him and he demanded that he wouldn't commentate on United games so no one could accuse him of bias. Slowly but surely, he commentates on United games and he talks about United all the time. But if Gary Neville genuinely believes that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer should still be in his job, and I don't think he does believe that. You see, people like him and Lineker and Fjortoft just want to look like good guys. They want to be on the right side of history. But in situations like this, you've got to put your flag on a mast. Because all these people saying, all I care about is my club and I'll support my club, win, lose or draw. That isn't support. That isn't support. Because one situation is poisonous for the club and the other one isn't. Now, I understand the club in a very desperate situation where they want to be measured about this and find the right replacement. And they can't do it. So I suppose they're hoping that he can win some games and at least stay there till the end of the season. But by that point, he'll probably finish in the top 4 and we'll be stuck with him. Win, lose or draw, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer isn't the man for our club. But he's going to remain in our club. And then there's another situation which is absolutely fucking laughable. And every time someone reports some news about Manchester United, it's laughable. Now we're hearing that the club are very comfortable in not selling Paul Pogba in January and now quite comfortable in losing money over him if he leaves on a free in the summer at the end of the season. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is a joke. In other words, they're trying to play chicken with Pogba. They're trying to call his bluff and they're going to see what he does in the end. They're saying, we are not going to bend to your demands. He's obviously said, I want this manager gone, right? Even though he's talking about, his support for the coach. Yeah, we know what he's playing at. But at the end of the day, nobody's supportive of this coach. Not really, because they all know he shouldn't be there. That's the embarrassing thing about him. Now, I heard that Ronaldo has, rallied the troops and said, you've got to support him. Don't down tools. Which is the right advice to give, because it's not good to down tools, because ultimately, it's not about the manager, but it hurts the club. As I said yesterday, we have to keep on winning, because if we don't, we're going to be in some kind of mid-table mediocrity, or even worse, relegation, a fight to avoid relegation. Don't think that's impossible at this stage. We have to get back to winning ways, and it hurts because we know by doing that, we allow this mediocre, Cabbage Patch doll to remain as the manager of our club. And he doesn't deserve it, because I'm sorry to have to say this, because I did have a better opinion of Ollie before he became our manager. But even just before he became permanent, I started to see this is a survivor. He plays survivor football, not for the players, not for the club, but for himself. His tactics are about his own survival. He likes being Manchester United manager. He likes what it brings him, the prestige it brings being Manchester United manager, and ain't no one taking that position off of him. And that's what he's doing. These tactics ensure he keeps his job. And because under his watch, lots of world-class players have been brought in, and some players, some fans didn't want them, have gone, people can say, yeah, but look how he's improved the squad. Anyone could have done the same thing, by the way. But it doesn't matter about the improvements behind the scenes. The point is, and people talk about his man management, I don't think his man management's very good, and we can see that already because no one even fucking understands his instructions anymore, a la Dave Sexton. We discussed that yesterday as well. And I mean, there's a video where he's being interviewed and someone asks him about tactics and he changes the subject and he says, well, I think you can overcomplicate football. It's about passion and energy. Now, it's all about what happens on the day on the pitch. A lot of people say that about football. It's not true. Let me tell you why tactics matter. And he's changing the subject from tactics because he doesn't know how to talk about tactics. He's the accidental manager. He's that guy in a sitcom that turns up to manage a hotel when he only came to stay the night. That's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is, and that's why he's avoiding the tactical question. Let me explain to you why tactics in life, not just in football, are very important. When Kevin Feige was forming the MCU, he had tactics on what kind of universe it was going to be. It's worked. And when DC tried to do something, it didn't work because Feige had already done that, and people didn't want to see an auteur running, a comic book live action franchise. Or when something hugely popular like McDonald's, there were tactics there. It became a big name because somebody smart created a really good idea. It's like all the ideas we see now, like TikTok and YouTube. Someone or a group of people came up with these ideas. Facebook. So tactics are very important in life. And your football tactics are what win your games. People are obsessed with what players play, but it's not about that. Me and my brother used to always say that Ferguson could win the league with a bunch of tramps, a bunch of vagrants off the streets. And I think it's true because he knew how to play the game. He knew where to play players and what formation to play them in. Now, Ferguson was very different because his tactics were pretty simple. It was 4-4-2, two wingers, a reducer like Keane and Butt or whoever was in the centre of midfield, but they both had skill as well. That's the thing about Nicky Butt. Keane would stay, Butt would run forward. And then Butt would stay there. He would stick in the hole while Keane went forward. They were both great world-class defensive tackling midfielders, but they were great attackers as well and had great score ratios for the team as well while they were at the club. And that's the difference between them and Fred and McTominay. Fred and McTominay can kind of do a reducer's role, but they're not the players who are going to run forward and be effective. Now, we've seen McTominay score some good goals, but he's not Roy Keane and he's not even Nicky Butt. There lies the problem. Now, what Manchester United had in Butt and Keane was all-round central midfielders, which is exactly what Manchester United hasn't had since Roy Keane left the club, since Nicky Butt retired as well. That's the problem. Now, there are players out there that we've never heard of who could do a similar job, but they're not bringing them in. And this has been an issue since Fergie's been there as well. And that's what we need. You need central defensive midfielders who are all-round midfielders, who can do the attacking effectively, and one sits, the other one goes forward. We haven't got that at United. I mean, McTominay and Fred are doing that to a point, but then don't forget that because Ollie's so ultra-defensive, they don't get to do that as much as Butt and Keane were doing it. And that's the problem. You don't have a smart manager here. He's not interested in playing the United way. He keeps on saying he wants to play the United way. The problem he's got tomorrow, and I mean, the game kicks off 5:30 UK time, that's 7:30 here in Cyprus. So tomorrow I will react to his presser because I'm really looking forward to it. So we'll react to that on tomorrow's MUFC Daily because it's a late kickoff anyway, so it'll be something to talk about before the game. But tomorrow's game is fascinating because does he stick or does he twist? Because does he play McTominay and Fred, McFred, or does he change what he's been doing? Does he stay with his trusted lieutenant in Maguire, who is a very average, mediocre defender? I'm not saying he's totally bad, but he's not good enough to be our captain or our main central defender. It's interesting last year that everyone tried to say Victor Lindelof was the problem, and I never believed he was. I think Maguire is a bad influence on Lindelof in terms of playing together, not off the pitch or anything. I just think Lindelof is a much better central defender than people give him credit for. And even last year I was saying Maguire is the problem and no one would listen to me. It's like the David De Gea situation. Everyone was saying he was done. And I mean, he's still quite a good age for a goalkeeper. It was ridiculous. He was just going through some, iffy form, and that was it. And he wasn't like he was dropping the ball and things like that. But people were saying he wasn't making the saves he should be making. I'm not a fucking goalkeeper, although I played in goal before. I can't tell you that. But I do think there was this campaign against these foreign players. And that's interesting. They wanted to put a British keeper instead of that Spanish keeper, De Gea, right? That's what they wanted to do. And there was this mentality at the club, because it was the club. It was Solskjaer leaking this stuff out to the press to stir the pot. This is what Ole Solskjaer does. And he's more nefarious and craftier and crueler than people say he is. This is why I don't accept he's a nice guy. I have no evidence he's a bad guy, well, apart from the way he's treated VDB, which is despicable. But I don't have any real evidence he's not a nice person. But I also don't have any evidence, apart from him being a short guy who smiles a lot, that he's a nice guy either. And so, this thing that he's a nice guy and we should give him a chance. No. Now, what's he going to do? Is he the smart tactical guy, I'm not talking about football tactics, that knows he has no choice but to play El Matador up front, and all the players, the fans, want to drop Maguire and strip him of the captaincy officially? Now, a real manager who was fighting for his position and for the club to be doing better would undo all his mistakes. But is he good enough to do that? If he strips the players not playing well from the team and brings in the players that deserve to be there, like Van der Beek and Matic and El Matador, if he brings those people in, it maybe won't make a difference in tomorrow's game, but sooner rather than later, if he starts doing that, then we'll start winning, and the pressure on him will reduce, especially if he wins a trophy. And ultimately, as a fan, that's all I want. I want him to be successful. It just doesn't look like he is. But you have to do it. The reason Solskjaer is in this position is actually not bad tactics or he's clueless. Well, partially it's because he's clueless. It's because of his erratic team selections. That's what it's been. All he had to do from the very start was play VDB. I don't understand this, because he's one of the best Dutch players in the world, as we've discussed before. It would have been perfect. He can control a midfield. He's amazing. Now, you'd have to be some clueless idiot not to rate him and not want to play him as many games. Why isn't he on one of the first on the team sheet? It doesn't make sense. And Matic and he would be so effective. But I don't know. I don't know why he's obsessed with McFred. But if he just played the best players that can fit into a team unit and be as effective as possible, he wouldn't be here. This is number one evidence that he's not good enough. So if he wants to save his career and Manchester United's season, by the way, he needs to play the players that need to be playing. Now, I know what people in the club and in the bubble are saying, that we're just a bunch of fans who have never played the game and we don't know what we're talking about. But here's the thing. The players in the studios, the pundits, not Gary Neville and Jan Argefjortov, but everybody else who wants to do their job properly, is saying what we're saying, and they have played the game. So he either sticks or twists, because he could play McTominay tomorrow and get away with it and get a 0-0 draw. He loves his draws. He smiles a lot when he draws, doesn't he? Big smile, big smile. But he could get a 1-0 win or something and do well out of it. He's won with McFred before, right? So it could happen again. So we'll have to wait and see, everyone. What do I think is going to happen? I think this is a manager who's going to get away with it and probably get a 1-0 win, and maybe even get a 2-1 win, something like that, even 3-1 at Tottenham, because as we saw last season, he's better away from home, because we had a great away record until we lost it recently, and I think at home, when we've started winning the first 2 games of the season against Leeds and whoever else it was, I thought, wow, we can play well at home now and away. We're going to be formidable. This is great. We got the players finally. This is going to be good. But then we started not doing well away. I thought, right, we're going to be good at home now and crap away. But now, after the Liverpool game, we can see that so far this season we're crap at home and crap away. So he needs to go back to basics, and he's going to be defensive. There's no question he's not going to change. He may change the players he plays. The problem with him is if he changes the players and goes more defensive, well, those players are more attacking players. So if you make them be more defensive, that fucks things up as well. So it's a very pressured situation, and my prediction for tomorrow, and we'll talk about this when I react to his presser tomorrow as well, but my prediction is either a 1-0, 2-1, or he may even sneak a 3-1. I could see us winning tomorrow. Again, I could be wrong. I want United to win, but ultimately, win, lose or draw, I am Ollie out. But what will happen is if he does go on a long run, people aren't going to be talking about Ollie out again, and I'll be happy as well because we're winning. But he's not the right man. And the only way I will ever change my mind is that if at the end of this season, he's carrying a trophy over his shoulders. This has been the MUFC Daily. I'm Nick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment. Please, please, please subscribe. So important if you like what I do here at Movies TV Mad. So I'll be back tomorrow with the press conference reaction, which I'm so excited about because it's going to be interesting what he has to say, how he can have the gall to face the press after the terrible job he's done at Manchester United and insisting in keeping his job. Forget about the club having to sack him. He should have done the right thing and resigned. Maybe they'll use that as propaganda to say that he offered to resign and the Glazers or Ed refused his resignation. I mean, didn't that happen with a previous manager? Was it Mourinho? I think that might have happened. So they might try that as us to say, oh, well, at least he did. He's a good bloke after all. But I won't believe it, even if they say it in the press. So I will be back tomorrow to talk about the ongoing soap opera and clusterfuck that is Manchester United. Until then, goodbye.